Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the next episode in our series of the quintessential bulletproof practice owner's manual for success. Hopefully, you appreciated the previous episode, took lots of notes, did some homework. Now get ready to do some more work on your business. Get out pad and paper, and let's go. Hello, and welcome back to the podcast. Nathan Shields here with my buddy Adam. How you doing, man?
Charged up. Let's roll.
All right, we are in the Practice Owner's Manual series. This is part 7, second half. So last podcast, we talked about practice management in terms of creating values, vision, org boards, SOPs, standard operating procedures, employee handbooks and policies and procedures, all that stuff. Job descriptions, did I say that? We talked about all those things to establish the foundation of your company, especially if you're considering growing in any respect in terms of size within one clinic or multiple clinics. So go back and listen to that prior to this one. But this is part 7 of the Owner Manual series, which we, in totality, should be a good foundation for anybody who is building their clinics, is starting a clinic, looking at the fundamental parts of the business and growing it from there. So go back and listen to that. It's been a few weeks since we released an episode, so apologies for that. But if you don't know, I moved my family from Alaska to Arizona, a little bit distracted. All the things that we got to do to.
We've been busy, guys.
Halfway around the world, essentially. At least that's what it felt like when I was driving it. So anyways, man, let's get into it. So today we're going to talk about practice management. The first part was establishing that paperwork, right? The grind of putting your thoughts down on paper, how we want to do things. This time, we're talking more about the employee experience, right? We're going to talk about hiring, onboarding, retaining. We might get into exit stuff as well, considering the employee life cycle. And we are going to save recruiting for a separate episode because we know everyone needs to work on that, and that can be a whole different process unto itself that needs some special attention. So today, we're just going to talk about the employee experience, right? Is that how you envision this going, Adam?
Yeah. Kind of how I have it in my head is, chapter 1 or step 1 is we've kind of built the foundation of what it looks like to manage your practice with your org board, your job descriptions, key statistics on each role, right? That kind of thing. And now, if you can imagine, we've got this template, right? And so now we just have to find the right who's to plug into each of those roles, and we have to manage them appropriately, right? And that's a skill set that needs to be learned, it needs to be organized, it needs to be systemized in order for you to get the outcomes that you're looking for.
Right. And to say it ahead of time, I think it's really important that as we're looking at the beginning of an employee life cycle, which usually starts in the hiring stages and what would you call it? Not recruiting, but even posting the ads or working your networks to find that next employee. Being clear as to the personality type that you're looking for each position, the certain value traits that they have, the values that you have, number one, and how do you see that in the potential employees that you're going to bring on? Being clear as to what kind of experiences, life cycles. We've talked about avatars in the past for your ideal client, your ideal patient. And it's also to think there should be a particular avatar as it relates to these certain positions within your company, would you say?
100%. I would invite you to turn back to, I believe it was chapter 2. And we talked about developing your culture, developing your purpose, developing your values, developing your story, your identity, right? This is the perfect time for you to pull it back out and kind of like remind yourself of what that is. And basically, you're just looking for the right people who align with that, right? Mm-hmm. Who have similar beliefs, who have similar, who hear your story and are like, man, that's really cool. That really excites me, right? So you want to hire the people on your team who are value aligned.
Right, exactly. So we considering the hiring process, I'll start there. When we were looking for people in the certain positions, tell me a little bit. Well, you tell me a little bit about how you built out those ads, how you advertised for positions in your clinic and what seemed to work best.
Yeah. Well, so kind of getting a little bit into recruiting and job boards is a big piece of that, right? So it's one of the buckets of recruiting, but if you're going to hire somebody, it's probably a good idea to have a job ad out somewhere on either Indeed, LinkedIn, Monster.com, all those, the APTA, job board, that kind of thing. And the thing is you want to write that ad in a way that represents the values of your company, right? Who are you? What do you believe in? What are the types of people that have these beliefs? Like, you want those people to click on your ad. So job ads is a huge piece of it, but not only that, but just networking, doing some networking, communicating with some of the schools, sending out emails and connecting with other therapists on LinkedIn. The point is, you just want to let people know that you're hiring so that they'll raise their hand and say, hey, I'm interested in talking to you about what that position looks like.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's imperative to leverage your network a lot, because I don't think we do that enough. And really knowing what you're looking for really helps, because then you can write an ad that is targeted directly at them. Because the last thing you want to do on an ad is say, we need someone who's licensed and can type 50 words a minute and knows Microsoft Word and capable of building out spreadsheets. I mean, no, that's the kind of stuff you talk about later on down the road.
Right.
You first want to find the person who, do they love working with people? Do they love helping people overcome physical disabilities? Have they had experiences with physical limitations of their own? Have they had experience with physical therapy in the past? Have they had experience in any kind of realm that you're working in, so that they can be promoters of exactly what you're providing, at least, right? And know the product. Like, part of it is, are you good with money? Are you, especially if you're at the front desk, you better be really good talking about money and find ways during the hiring process to figure that out, right? Anyways, we're talking about ads, but so talking about that, and our ads specifically did highlight our values. So we would say, we believe in professionalism, accountability, growth, and empathy, and it shows up in these ways, and this is our vision. And if you want to be a part of that, then reach out to us. Right? Or if any of this rings true to you and you think you're a rock star, we want you to send in a resume.
That's right. It's kind of the bait that's on the fishing pole, right? Yeah. Maybe 100 people look at that ad, or 50 people or whatever, but you really only want the 2 people who read that who say to themselves, I definitely want to talk more about that, right? Like, I don't care what they're paying. I don't care when the interview is. I just want to I want to hear more about what this person is talking about. Those are the 2 people you want to talk to, right?
Yeah. You'd rather have those 2 people who are kind of excited versus 100 resumes just because you have the ad up.
Yeah. I'm just looking for anybody who could pay me a check. You don't want those people, right?
No, you filter them out, and you are talking specifically to them. So you are going to get fewer resumes. However, the resumes should be much better qualified.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. Speaking of resumes, if you're doing any type of job posting, all right, like, the whole point of it is to get a resume, or to get a lead, or to get somebody who applies, an applicant. And so, going through that hiring process, step 1 is reviewing the resumes, right? Making sure that somebody put together a decent resume. It's got everything that it needs on it. It's got a cover letter. It's got all the credentials. And so, you'd want to do a resume review, right? That's kind of the first step.
Yeah. And you tell me, but it usually went like resume, quick phone call. And when I say phone call, it usually wouldn't last more than 15 minutes. Like, get a sense of them pretty quick. Yeah. And then, and maybe even a Zoom call if you can. It would be nice to see them and like their face and whatnot, and how they present themselves before you bring them in person. Is that kind of how it went? At what point did you ask for references? Not until after the interview?
Yeah, maybe after the interview. Yeah.
If they were to go.
Yeah, if you can imagine, like, on your owner's manual, it says hiring process, right? You're going to post a job ad. You're going to do some resume reviews, maybe a few criteria on what you want to see on a resume. What would disqualify them? What would qualify them, right? Of those qualified resumes, the next step would be an initial phone screen, 15-minute phone screen. Who are you? Why'd you apply? Right? If you like what you hear and they sound aligned with you, follow up, invite them to an in-person interview, right? That would be kind of the next step of the process. And during that interview, you would have to have a series of questions that you would want to ask, specific questions, so like write the interview questions down and come prepared with these specific questions for your company, right? From there, a working interview, and then potentially an offer if they kind of get through the process.
Yeah, that's pretty much, that was our exact same process. And I found those interviews initially as a newer owner to be kind of nerve-wracking. I didn't know what to ask, and I would ask the same silly questions like, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and got the same stupid responses. And there were a couple times where I wish I had the guts when someone showed up, and these were usually for tech and front desk positions, would show up like in jeans and a t-shirt, and I wish I had the guts at the time to just say, yeah, this isn't going to work today. Thanks for driving over, but we're done.
Not a good fit.
It's not a good fit. Sorry. One other thing that I know people have done in the past, and we did it occasionally, but especially if we're getting a lot of resumes for a particular position, towards the end of the ad, we would say, put an asterisk in the upper right corner to show that you're serious about applying for this position. Mm-hmm. And if they didn't have an asterisk in the upper right corner, then immediately their resumes got tossed out. We didn't even read them. So there are some filtering processes that you can use to weed out so many of those resumes if you need to.
Yeah. So you kind of increase the barrier to entry, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Make them jump through a few more hoops.
And the phone call, the 15-minute phone call is just a screen, and there's no commitment to the in-person interview during that phone call. It's just like, hey, just you send in your resume, doing a follow-up call. Just wanted to talk to you a little bit, gauge your interest. What made you interested? What do you like about the potential position? What got you interested in the ad? And then, like you said, if it feels good, move on to the in-person. And I really appreciate you saying, like, writing out the questions out ahead of time. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming you have some examples in our vault for our clients.
Yeah, of course.
But many of them, again, I would recommend being value related. You might have to get a little bit creative instead of saying, if your value is professionalism, saying, how did you demonstrate professionalism in the past? But maybe consider bringing up an actual situation where, hey, sometime in your past, did you or another employee act inappropriately, and how did you guys handle that so that it didn't devolve into something dramatic, right? Mm-hmm. How did you handle that? And see how they respond and see if it falls in line. Also, as we talked about values, I was watching their body language. Like, are they engaged? Are they sitting back with their arms crossed? Are they looking up at the ceiling, look at their fingernails, checking their phones? Watching the body language to see if they're engaged and interested in the position and me and the company whatsoever.
Yeah. I think it's important to objectify and standardize that whole process. Like, write the questions down, write down the specific criteria that you ask on the phone screen and in the interview process. Because if you don't, then the hiring process will typically or tend to drift towards an emotional decision. Mm-hmm. If you don't standardize it, right? Yeah. And if you objectify it, then you can improve it. Or, if you end up making a bad hire, then you can look at the process and change the interview questions or change the resume screening process to improve the outcome. Yeah. But if it's all over the place and it's just kind of like however you feel at any given day, mm-hmm. then you're going to have those types of results. You're going to have it's kind of like flipping a coin. You don't know what you're kind of getting into.
I love how you pointed that out. Did you ever do you do group interviews at all?
We just started that, actually. I think you gave me that idea a couple podcast episodes ago, and we built out a policy, and we're going to start doing some group interviews for admin.
Oh, that's cool.
Techs and front desk positions.
Yeah, that's exactly for the higher turnover positions where they might drop out on you on a dime and just not show up at the clinic. We wanted to have a stack of resumes to call at any given time, and we found that to be really fruitful. We found some cool people, and I actually kind of enjoyed it. So we would post the ad and say, if you're interested, we are hiring, and we're going to have an interview process on such date at such time. If you're available and interested, then apply, send in your resume. And inevitably we'd get a certain number of them. We knew if we had 15 resumes, we'd show up, there'd be between maybe 5 to 8 who would actually show, right? And we had that, like you said, we had a little agenda to it. Like we had them come in. We like to have fun, so we actually played Pictionary with them to break the ice.
Really?
Yeah.
That must have been Will's idea.
Totally, right? So
Shout out, Will.
we do about 2 or 3 Pictionary things and see how they handled that and being
yeah, that is cool. I like that.
We would talk about values and have a discussion with the group. These are our values. We also shared a little bit about our story. Like we opened up at this time, and it's been like 3 to 5 minutes just talking about we opened up in 2002 and we have these clinics and this is what we're looking for. And then we'd have that discussion about values. We actually had them take a little test as well. I think it was about 10 questions, and it was just kind of a logic test. There was certain, I don't know where we got it, but we had them take this test and we would score it to see how they did. Never give them the results, but we just score it and then ask them for any questions that they had. And so it usually take about, I would say 30 to 45 minutes. And within that time, usually a couple people would stand out, right? And those were the people that, as we're walking out, we'd say, hey, thanks for coming by. We appreciate it. These are the positions that we're looking to hire. If we're interested in working with you, you'll get a call from us to do that 15-minute phone screen. And then some people would catch on the way out and say, hey, we really like you, and do the in-person interview right then.
Nice.
To know that by that. And it really helped with those positions to save time.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about the process, right? So, bullet points on your piece of paper, hiring process. Step 1, resume review. What exactly does it look like? What does a good resume look like? Write it down. They have to meet certain criteria. Number 2, that initial phone screen, and what questions are like, how is that conducted, and what questions do you ask?
And what are you looking for?
Right. And what are some of the criteria that would qualify them for an in-person interview? They'd have to answer it in a certain way, a certain tone, right? They schedule the interview, and then we have a process for that. Certain questions that are specific, that are documented in a certain way, or like you mentioned, maybe it's a test, or maybe it's some type of format. And then we do maybe some type of working interview, whether that's an hour or 2 hours, and that has a format as well. And then from there, if they get through all of that and they meet all the criteria you're looking for, then you can extend an offer.
Right. The beauty of everything that you laid out right now is that now that you have that system, you don't have to do it anymore.
That's right.
You can hand this off to someone else.
And you can manage the system.
Right.
Manage the system instead of all that stuff that's rattling around in your head all over the place. It's right there on a piece of paper. You can just manage that, and it's so much easier to manage once it's out of your head. Yeah. So you can do that in like 3 hours, like 2-3 hours. You could put all that together very simply.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. And I can't emphasize it enough. And I'm not sure enough owners do it, but the working interviews, huge game changer for us. Some people can really fly through those interview processes, especially one-on-one, and do great. But we missed some serious red flags until they got to that job shadow or that working interview, where we're like, oh, they showed really well, but once they were on the floor, it didn't work. And really glad we did the job interviews at that point.
Yeah, and it just makes it so clean. My team is like, and I'm guilty of this. It's like, hey, what do you think about this candidate? Should we hire him? And it's like, just follow the process. Just follow the process, And if we make a bad decision, we'll fix the process.
And I think the team really appreciates being part of that process, and they know what kind of person works well in the culture of the company. Maybe better than we do because we're on the outside sometimes, but they know what the dynamic is in the clinic, and they can say, oh, this person yeah, they might have a rough time, or hey, this person just spent a lot of time on their phone the entire time. I think that's an issue.
Yeah.
Or the person that hit a home run were the people that showed up to the job shadow with like notepad and pen, ready to take notes, and like, hey, we need to make a call to confirm this appointment. Well, you want to make it this time? They're like, yeah, give it to me. Let's go.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the kind of people you want to see on the job shadow.
That's right. Show up with a pad. They ask some good questions. They have some goals. They have some direction with their life and their career. They're interested in what you're doing. They want to be a part of some of the serious stuff you're doing.
Right.
Right. Like I want to be a part of some of the strategic initiatives of the company. Right. Like I want to like, what are you guys doing? How are you guys going to grow? How many people are you hiring? Right. They're asking those types of questions.
Yeah. You want to see those types of people for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what do you want to say about the job offer and bringing them prior? We were going to talk about a little about this hiring process and the onboarding process, but the in between, what do you want to say about the job offer and procuring?
Yeah, I think there's a good way and a bad way to do it. I don't think there's a right or wrong, but I can tell you what we do is we always get a verbal offer first. We want to get a verbal agreement on what that offer looks like, compensation, benefits, the whole 9 yards, right? We want to get a verbal offer. Once we get a verbal yes, then we'll extend something in writing that outlines the details of our conversation. We'll give them a day or two to approve it, right? We'll have an expiration date on it. Once we get that signed and approved, we start the onboarding process.
Nice. Yeah.
Let's rock and roll.
Simple. Now, we're going to save recruiting for another time, but part of the interview process for specifically for providers, do you bring up production expectations during that interview process as well?
Yeah, I would
hate to have the production conversation during the onboarding process, and they're like, "Wait, you want me to see 100 patients a week?
Yeah,
I didn't sign up for that." You're like,
yeah,
it's a little too late to bring it up then.
Yeah, I think yes, I think it's a good idea to bring up the production, especially if you start hiring people and you're having production issues, then it's kind of like you got to go upstream, right? If they're already on your team, it's because they went through your onboarding process and they weren't prepared, like their expectations weren't managed, right? So if you're hiring people and you're hitting a bunch of home runs and all of them are great and they're hitting production, then I wouldn't fix a thing, right? But if you're having those types of issues, then that's a very good indication that that needs to be built into your onboarding or training process.
Yeah. So I loved how you set up your onboarding process. Ours was, we'd actually spend a full day going over the employee handbook and some of the values of the company and some of the important policy and procedures portions. And that would be whether you were a provider or a front desk person or technician, didn't matter. You were going to go through that one day of onboarding. This was usually done by our leadership team. Initially it was handled by me and Will, but we also systematized that and handed over to our leadership team. So they knew they were going to spend a day going over the what it's like to work for Rise Rehab day and get them onboarded that way. And then work them into maybe working with their clinic directors to get them involved into the clinics. But you tell me a little bit about your structure.
So we've kind of got ours built out in 3 phases. It's a 90-day onboarding process, right? And this is just kind of a simple zoomed out version. But, in the beginning, phase 1, I think the biggest mistake you can make is like hire somebody and then the next day give them 50 patients to see.
Yeah.
I think you're setting yourself up and them and the patients for a really bad time, right? So like, show them where the bathroom's at.
Like, where do they put their stuff?
Yeah, where do you put your stuff?
Where do they park?
Yeah, like give them some freaking time. You know what I mean? Like let them get some oriented. Like, and we usually give them a good week. Not that they're not going to see any patients for a week, but like we're going to give them some space. We're not going to jump into that. And so
you're going to give them time to like sit down with the EMR webinars, right?
Correct. Watch these trainings.
Yeah. Schedule some time in their day so they can actually spend an hour, 2, 3 hours, whether it's front desk, tech, or provider, just sit down with the EMR and get used to it. Stuff like that. I
think it's really helpful to just, on that first day, and it's just like, hey, Nathan, I am so excited to be here with you today. Let's just hang out. Come on back. Mm-hmm. And just kind of give them time to like just walk around the clinic and introduce themselves and go to the bathroom and see where that's at, and go find the hydroculator, right? You don't have to jump down their throat and start getting them busy.
Mm-hmm.
But the main thing is, like, during that first week, you want to get all your HR and admin stuff onboarded, right? Get the credentialing stuff started, get a copy of the license,
Right.
get their logins, make sure you're going through that employee handbook, going through that job description, going through the org board that we just made and we polished up for everybody. This is where you're at. This is where you fit in the company. Here's some of the expectations.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of phase one for your first 7 days. Phase two is going to be your roles and responsibilities. That's going to be a 3-week process, right? Your roles and responsibilities. So that's where you're going to go through the EMR, watch them do an eval, make sure they're documenting on time, make sure they know their KPIs and how to measure them and how to report them, how to participate in the weekly meetings, like how to do their job on a technician level.
Would you be essentially using the job description as your checklist?
Yeah.
Part.
Yeah. I mean, it's like EMR, documentation, policy procedure, time off, billing, KPIs, and meetings. Like, just kind of like, that's what you need them to learn. You need to learn those things. This is how you do your job. Okay. First 30 days, onboarded, they've shadowed, all their admin stuff is together, and they know how to do the basics of their job.
Mm-hmm. Then
the second or the final phase is a 2-month process where we focus on performance. Now that you're oriented and now that you can go through this clinic on a day-by-day basis and not kill anybody, you know their bathrooms out, you know how to log in. Now let's talk about the sales program, the internal marketing program, the patient experience, production, all
what
of
do we
those
expect
things.
out of you? I mean,
correct. This is how we really, really contribute value to the company.
Do you guys do, just a thought that came to mind, do you guys do much role play during this 90 days?
Not a whole lot of role play initially, but what we do is we sit in on their evaluations, right?
Well, you're talking about providers specifically there.
Provider specifically, right? And we do a checklist on making sure they're hitting certain metrics during the evaluation or the intake process or whatever their role is like.
Yeah. We found we did a little bit during the onboarding process. We also found a lot of benefit from it during the weekly meetings. But I could see how role playing, and especially if someone's new to, say, the front desk position and they haven't asked for copays before, and they haven't come up with up against objections to copays and stuff like that before, that role playing would be an important part of this. So they're not doing trial and error on real patients.
Yeah. Now we do have a role play process. What we do is we do that once a year with the entire company.
Oh,
so it's not part of that initial onboarding process, but every year, everybody in the whole company does it. So that's kind of how we have it set up.
Yeah, super cool. And what do you see the benefits are of having this onboarding process mapped out like this, and taking 90 days to do that? What have you seen the benefits of that be?
So I just got off the phone with a client like earlier today, and he was onboarding. We've done a lot of work over the last 6 months, and we built out his onboarding process, his clinical sales training, purpose, values, the whole thing. And, we said, hey, I said, what's your onboarding process going to look like? Because you're not the same company you were when you hired your last person. You're a different company. And so that means the process is going to be different. And so we went through that. Today I got on the phone with him and I said, so how's the new person doing? He said, Adam, it's amazing. He said, it's actually working. He's like, it's his first week and he's already like trying to figure out ways to maximize his units and try to get people bought in. And we just started kind of cracking up laughing, because it was just like, it's such a awesome experience whenever you put all that work into this type of thing and you deliver so much value to the employee and to the patients and to the team. It's like you're pouring so much energy into them, and to watch it come to life and see everybody win, it's just so freaking cool. I remember there was a point in my career when I kind of like stopped and looked around and I just saw everybody doing their job and I wasn't even needed there, and that was the point when that was the starting point when I really realized that, man, what we do here is pretty special. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And I feel really good about who we are and what we do once I saw everybody kind of buying into it like that.
I can imagine in that situation, you felt really confident then as you were hiring and recruiting other people and be like, we've got an amazing team.
We got a
We've got
killer
an amazing company. This cultures can't be beat.
Yes.
And I knew we felt like that as well. There's no reason anyone would not want to work with us.
Yeah. Because you're so clear on who you are and what's important to you. I feel like this is the first training program you build is that provider onboarding, right? And then once you kind of go through that, it's like, hey, guess what? Now you can do it for your clinic director. Now you can do it for your recruiting person. Now you can do it for your marketing team.
Mm-hmm.
You can start building out these trainings. I know we're going on a different topic, but the point is it's worth your time.
Yeah. The team members that came on to our team as well, they would start saying things even on the first day. They're like, oh, this is different. You guys do things differently here. You guys are really professional. Like, we're like, really? Because we're just kind of doing the best we can here. But they notice the difference because they've been in the clinics and they've been in the companies where they just get thrown to the wolves. Right. And you don't want that. And your team members, they want direction. They thrive on leadership and guidance. They want to learn. And the less of that you give them, the more prone they are to like figuring it out themselves and not doing it the way you want them to do it and creating a culture that's unintentional, right? And that leads to burnout and leads to stress and anxiety. But the more support you can give in those situations, then the more confidence they have in what they're doing. They want that playbook. They want to be told what the plays are in the playbook because these are the plays that will make us successful and they'll follow them if you provide it.
They really do. And to just continue on that, one of the coolest things that I see is, and I don't mean this in an evil way, but they become indoctrinated into your culture, right? Like they become like deeply connected, right, like emotionally connected to, right? And so like you'll see people like third day, they come in and they've got like their company shirt on. Yeah. It's all like, I'm Southern Physical Therapy proud. You know what I mean? Like and it's like, as an owner, when I walk in and I see somebody representing us like that on their first week, I'm like, man, I love you. You know what I mean? Like you're freaking awesome. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I talked about it before, but what's also cool about building out all these systems is eventually as you grow and expand, these hiring systems are going on and you're not even knowing it. And people are getting hired without you even knowing. Like it was so weird for me to come across a new employee in the company that had been with us 3 weeks. And it was the first time I'd ever met him.
Yeah. That onboarding process is key, man.
Awesome.
Yeah. It's key. And it's a system, right? It's the same thing. It's like, let's make sure let's in the beginning, let's schedule out the meetings, like schedule out the weekly check-in, schedule out the 90-day check-in, schedule out the review the evaluation check-in, like all the check-ins, schedule them out, schedule out the time to do the EMR and this and that and this, and just follow the process.
Yeah. Checklists make that easy.
Yeah. Yep. So, right under your hiring process, you have your onboarding process, and you don't have to have it all built out, but it's important for you to at least have a framework, right? Phase 1, first week, HR and admin. Phase 2 is going to be weeks 2 through 4, and that's going to be roles and responsibilities, job descriptions, all that stuff. How to do
practice all
therapy.
that stuff. Yep. And
then the second the phase 3 is going to be months 2 and 3, and that's going to be all about performance. If you break it down like that, it's just a really good place. Like it's a good framework to ramp it up, get all the stuff out the way in the beginning, and just ramp it up and get to performance. The goal is fully productive within 90 days,
right?
Without overwhelming your team or the therapist. That's a big piece. The product is ramping up the therapist as quickly as possible without eliciting any overwhelm or anxiety for anybody on the team. Like that's the product, right?
Right. So we went through hiring, onboarding, And lastly, how do we keep them? Retention. What kind of secrets do you have in terms of keeping people, especially A players, on your team?
Yeah. We can have a whole freaking episode on this, but
Mhm.
I don't remember if you guys remember, but we talked about the patient life cycle,
Right.
right? The patient life cycle. Well, guess what? You have an employee life cycle. They onboard. We check in with them every week. We have weekly meetings. We have a monthly one-on-one. We have quarterly or annual reviews every year with them, right? So the thing is that you have to make time to meet with your team and hold that space for them to be heard and for you to communicate clearly with them. And if you just do that and be a decent leader, they'll stick with you, they'll align with you. So number one, I would just say, set some goals. Like, what are their career goals? What are their personal goals? What are their professional goals? And number two, make sure you're having a weekly team meeting blocked off with an agenda, and you give them time to like give you some feedback on like how they're doing every week and how they want to be a part of the team. If you just get those two things right and commit to that, you'll probably you'll really improve your employee experience.
Yeah, I think those. I don't think we did monthly meetings. Maybe we did. I can't remember. I'm getting old. But our goal was, and maybe this is a little bit backwards, but our goal was we didn't want any employee to be surprised that they were being let go. Like, they should know where they stand in the company most of the time, either through objective KPIs or enough accountability meetings or one-on-one meetings where we've had to talk to them about how they're doing. And so, not necessarily based on that, but being one of our driving factors, we felt it was important to talk with our team members on a regular basis and get a feel for where they're at. Now, one of my friends, he has a part of his annual review. He asked them a typical Dan Sullivan question, which is, if we have this meeting again in a year,
Mm-hmm.
what would have to have happened in order for it to be a success in your life?
It's a great interview question too.
Right. Oh yeah, exactly. Right. So we're sitting here in a year. What has to have happened in the last 12 months for you to say that was an amazing year in blankety blank clinic? And talk it out and figure it out. And that's a good way to establish some goals for them, because you're not going to impose the goals upon them.
Correct.
But you're also going to talk about the KPIs and where they're standing. You're also going to talk about values and how they're living those out and where they can improve. So ours was, again, a very value-based assessment of how they were doing in the company. And so we tracked that. We talked about that. We kept notes of that. We actually had the annual review questionnaire. We had them fill it out before the annual review and turn it into us before the meeting so we could review it. And we filled it out as well. So each of us would fill out the same questionnaire regarding that team member's performance in the past year. And then I would review it, both of those, before the meeting, and then come to it. And then in those meetings, it was the responsibility of the team member to report what they did and report the answers to that questionnaire to us. So we established that this is you reporting to us about what you're doing and how you feel you did in the past year. When you're done, then I'll share with you my perspective as to how you did in the past year. So we liked having that dynamic. We liked having a value-based assessment process. And I think it's helpful to have the team member do a lot of reflection and not just yourself.
Yeah. The one thing that I add to that is I will do an annual review on myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I share that with them as well. Like, hey, this is what I'm working on. These are the values that I'm trying to work on right now. Right.
That's cool.
And then also, like, how can I be a better leader for you? Like, how can I hear you better? How can I push you without pushing you too much? Like, how can I do better for you? Right.
Great question. Great question.
Yep.
What more do you need from me?
What do I do? What do you need from me to help you reach this? Like, can I listen better? Can I give you something a little different? Like, what am I missing? You know?
Yeah. Some great old generalized questions are like, here's what I need from you. What do you need from me? and what is your focus over the next year, right?
What does success look like together, and how, and then what we always do is like, how are we going to celebrate? Like, let's plan the celebration.
Yeah.
You know, what are we going to do? Let's go to the movies. Let's go, whatever. Like, let's have a pizza party, whatever it is. Right.
Right.
So the employee experience, basically, annual goal setting with maybe some employee review framework. Pretty important. Some type of check-in, whether that's monthly or quarterly, like just check in with them.
Right.
And then a team meeting, right? We do it weekly, every week. We block off an hour. We're going to have a team meeting with a meeting agenda. We're going to review the calendar together. We're going to review the initiatives. We're going to give everybody an opportunity to talk and speak, and expect them to present their concerns. And yeah, we do that. Everybody gets better, right?
Right. Gotcha, man. Yeah. It really, at that point, and when those systems are running, the power of the culture kind of takes over. And a lot of that can be felt. Interestingly, the power of the culture is felt by the strength of your systems. Don't you feel?
Yes.
Because
and you know what? And I'm
those
learning.
Structures are imbued with your values, and you talk about it so much. And even if the systems aren't living up to your values, it allows you to say, oh, we could do that better to show XYZ value.
Yeah.
And I think that just kind of becomes the backbone for the culture.
Yeah. It kind of just comes down to, like, the systems, this type of system, it's really a system of helping people thrive, right? Like, it's helping people have open lines of communication, feeling heard, get given feedback. And it also helps them with, like, just having clarity. Like, I know where I'm at. I know what I'm working on. I know what decisions I need to be made. I know where I don't need to be, and I know where I need to be in the company. And that makes me feel really secure and excited and in control of what I'm doing and where I'm going. Mm-hmm. And that makes everybody happy. Right. Otherwise, it's kind of that, like, well, I thought I was supposed to do that. You didn't say that. And it's all that stuff. And we're kind of like putting out fires all over the place. Right. And that's no fun. That's hard for culture.
Well, you said that yesterday, that confused people don't.
That's right.
So this provides a lot of security. I remember doing a podcast years ago with someone he said, my job is to provide a foundation off of which the team members can thrive. Mm-hmm. I provide the foundation, and what we're talking about today is the foundation for a successful employee life cycle.
That's it.
Understanding that not everyone, and we would even say this sometimes in our interviews, we're not expecting you to be with us for the rest of your life. We know this is going to end at some time. We just want to make this a great experience for you, so you can take the next step up in life and be an even better team member with greater skill set that you can provide value to your next employer. Right? That was our whole goal. We knew that this isn't the end, and for most people, we don't want it to be the end. It shouldn't be in some of those positions. So we want to make it as valuable as possible for them.
Love it, man.
Cool. Anything else you want to add about the employee life cycle?
No, I think that really covers it pretty good. I mean, I think the main point I just want to remind the listeners on is, like, don't skip this. You're not going to keep it in your head. You're not going to follow your own rules unless you write them down. Trust me, I've tried that. It doesn't work. Like, just write it down. Yeah. You know what I mean? Just write it down and follow the process. And I promise you, like, it'll make it so much easier for everybody.
Right. I know there's plenty of people that are listening to the episode. Maybe they've listened to the past 7 parts of this Practice Owners Manual series, and they're feeling like each episode is like drinking from a fire hose.
Yeah.
That's why we're here. We're not only providing value, but that's when coaching comes into play. We tell you, this is what's missing. This is what you need to implement. Because now we're talking about 7 different parts of the organization. And you might be sitting there thinking, well, they're all super important. We're telling you, you have to do all of them. Well, that's where coaching comes into play and says, Well, this is your weak spot. This is where you need to pay attention, right? This is where your focus should be. You shouldn't be over here actually working on policy and procedures because you don't have any new patients this week. So maybe let's talk about marketing.
Right, right, right.
Even though you've got the shiny object syndrome that all entrepreneurs have, the job of the coach and the services that we provide at Private Practice Owners Club Coaching is to say, okay, let's look over here so that you can attain the dreams that you want. And this is why we're there. So if you're listening to this series and you're getting a ton of value, great. Make sure you're implementing. But please understand, we are doing this because it provides a ton of value, but we're also saying you need help. So you need to reach out and give us a call.
Absolutely. If I tell people all the time, if you're killing it and you're living the life that you want and you're just on cloud nine, I'm your biggest supporter. I'm your biggest fan. But if you're feeling a little stuck, if you don't feel like you're really excited about what you're doing and you feel a little overwhelmed, give me a call. Give me a call. And I promise you, if we can help you, we will. And we'll help you make a transformative difference in your life and in your practice.
Yeah. PTOclub.com. There's a book a call button at the very top of the page. Just book a call and you and Adam can talk about whatever pain points you're dealing with. But it's imperative. I'm feeling a renewed energy to push people into coaching recently because we see too many people just struggling for no reason. And they don't have to. There's so many physical therapists out there that are surviving. And I can tell you that 98, 99% of them have some kind of coaching support.
I talked to a person the other day, almost 70 years old, has been in practice for like 20 to 30 years, still working 60, 70 hours a week. And I just had to tell him, like, man, there is so much more possible for you if you would just dare to venture on the other side. Like, I promise you, like, there's so much more possible. So if you're feeling stuck, I promise you there's so much more possibility.
Yeah. Even if you want to email Adam at ptoclub.com, Nathan at ptoclub.com, we're happy to help. All right, man. I think next episode, correct me if I'm wrong, we're going to be talking about recruiting.
We're going into recruiting, man.
All right. So if you're looking for a recruiter or if you're looking for providers, you don't want to miss the next episode for sure.
That's right.
All right. Thanks, man.
Thanks, brother.